Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Janakalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Paramananda Madhavam. We will chant Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambattvamanusandathami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Bindayata Patra Nitra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamritaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavaha Togdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Tugdam Gitamritam Mahata Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tata Jayadratha Gandharani Lotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavairana Nadi Kaivartakah Keshavaha Parasharyavachas Sarojamamalam Gitartha Gandhotkatam Nanakyanaka Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatpadairaharaha Pepiyamanam Buddha Bhuyat Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradvamsina Shreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्कपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः. Salute that Bhagavan who nobody knows the beginning and the end of that Bhagavan. And that Bhagavan speaks or starts to speak in chapter 2, which we call Sankhya Yoga. And that's why it is a separate chapter. We will read the first 4 verses that we covered. We will revise and then move on. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Dvitiyodhyayaha Sankhya Yogaha Tam Tatha Kripaya Vishtam Ashrupurna Kulekshanam Vishidantamidam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalamidam Vishame Samupasthitam Anaryajushthamaswargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna Klaibyam Masvagamapartha Naitatvayupapadyate Kshudram Hridaya Daurbalyam Tyaktvottishta Parantapa Arjuna Uvacha Katham Bhishmamaham Sankhye Dronam cha Madhusudana Ishubhih Pratiyotsyami Pujarha Varisudana. So far, we have entered into chapter 2. So chapter 1, I hope, is very clear, and I have read your insights, those of you who have sent, and I'm very grateful for that. And with that mindset, we enter chapter 2. After chapter 1, Arjuna is really in deep misery. He's in deep misery. He sits down in his chariot. He sits down in the ratha, in the chariot. And he drops his bow and he is just overwhelmed with grief. He doesn't want to fight, but he doesn't leave the chariot. So in chapter 2, Sanjaya continues the description and says, this is what Arjuna was like. He was overwhelmed, avishta, with kripaya, with that misplaced compassion. He was overwhelmed. And he was with all tears, ashrupurna kulekshana, and vishidantam, vishidantam. He was fraught with sorrow. And to this Arjuna, who was in this very pitiable condition, he just really broke down. And that's why the first chapter is the yoga of Arjuna's grief. This whole grief of Arjuna is illustrated and how he's going through that. From a master, he became a victim. Bhagavan Krishna, the very first words he speaks, he says, Klaibyam masmaga, he says, Kutastva kashmalam idam. First he says, Kutastva kashmalam idam. He says, Arjuna, Kutaha tva kashmalam idam. Means, from where did this come from? By now, Bhagavan Krishna and Arjuna must be around 75 years old. At that time, they used to live for a long time. That was young. So those of you who are 75, you're only Bhagavan Krishna's age. And Arjuna's age was fighting the war. So please think you are young and full of energy and you can still fight a war. So they must be around that age and they're the same age. So Bhagavan Krishna has known Arjuna for a long time. They've been friends for a long time. And he said, where did this come from? This is not like you. You are this grand Arjuna, always ready for a fight, ready for a war. You just want to get in there. You just want to do your thing because you're a Kshatriya. This Kashmalam, this delusion, where is it coming from? And Vishame, of all the times, now it's coming. This delusion, this misplaced compassion, where is it coming from? And why is it coming now? Now, where it's not the right time, you're at war, it's not the right place, we're in a battlefield, it's not to the right people, they're atatai, they have done all kinds of mischief. We saw what kind of mischief they did. So in this particular situation where it's out of context, it's not the right time, it's not the right place, it's not the right people, how is this coming over you? Bhagavan Krishna is also surprised in this way. He's not seen Arjuna like this. And so Samupasthitam, it comes to Arjuna. He tells Arjuna, this is Anaryam. Anaryam means it's not noble. Arya doesn't mean a group of people. Arat gachati the Arya, the one who comes away from Nishiddha karma or prohibited karma is called Arya. Arat gachati. So when we say Anaryan, means somebody who's not noble. Arya, somebody who comes away from prohibited karma. Anarya, one who engages in prohibited karma. This is Anarya. This is not noble. And he says, Aswargyam, this will not get you heaven. It's not a means to heaven. And a Kirtikaram, this will not get you fame. Oh, Arjuna, what happened? So these three things Lord Krishna says. He says, whatever you're saying, you might be deluded. You might think it's noble. It's not. You might think it will get you heaven. It will bring you hell on the other hand, because you're not doing your duty. You might think whatever you said will bring you good fame. It won't. And these are Lord Krishna's stance, and he knocks out Arjuna. He says, what happened to you? Then he says, Arjuna, in verse 3, Klaibyam, means stop being a coward. You've lost your swabhava, you've lost your kshatriyata, you've lost your warriorness. What happened to you? Don't be a coward. And he says, na etat vaya tvai upapadyate, means in you, this is not befitting. It's not befitting to see Arjuna like this. And he says, this kshudram hridaya daurbalyam, this weakness of heart that you have right now, tyaktva, having cast it aside, uttishta, get up, Arjuna. But the interesting thing is, he doesn't call him Arjuna here. He uses two very distinct names. The first one is, he says, Partha. Why? Pritayaha putra. He wants to remind Arjuna, you're the son of Kunti. You're the son of Kunti Devi. Do you know who she is? She was a single mom who raised 5 princes on her own. She raised them in the forest. She brought them back to Hastinapur. She was there with them through in and out, and she always kept them together. You can imagine 5 brothers, how much conflict will be there. 1 brother is enough. 5, so much conflict could be there. But this Kunti Devi kept everybody together. Now that's a mother. This is what we have to see from Kunti Devi. How with all of her children, there was no jealousy, no hatred, no looking down. Everyone was together. And everyone respected Yudhishthira. And everyone, she saw to it that everybody's talent was shown, was brought out. And whatever was required, she did. For Bhima, more food was required, so she gave. But she kept this feeling of camaraderie. So this is your mother. You are the son of this Kunti Devi who is extremely strong. And then you are behaving like this? Not only Kunti Devi, you are the Amsha of Indra. Because remember, Kunti Devi, she invoked a sacred mantra from Indra Devata that a son would be born. So you are the Amsha, you are the part of Indra Devata. That Indra is the king of the heavens. What? And you're behaving like this? You know, when our parents are very noble, you know, they've done such wonderful things. They've helped so many people. They've established themselves so well. They're so noble, so compassionate. They do a lot of service. And then when the child turns out to be very different, very rugged and wasting their time, wasting their life, you ask them, are you this person's son or daughter? How can you be like that? So by this Pritha, you know, Partha, the son of Pritha, the son of Kunti, he's telling, you know, he's indirectly telling Arjuna, look at your lineage. And how did you fall so far away from it? And then he says, you are not only Partha, you are Parantapa. Means when other people see you, they get scared. Oh, Arjuna's in the battlefield. Arjuna's in the battlefield. We have to run. We cannot face him because he is so brave. So Bhagavan Krishna is doing something so wonderful to Arjuna. He's saying, remember who you are. This is what he's saying. And this is a beautiful thing for us to take as our sadhana. When we are falling down, when we are down and out, there are some days where it's just really, really tough. There's some times where we're going through really hard times. But in those times, what can we do? Remember where we were. Remember the good times where we succeeded. Remember the good times where we made it. Remember those people who have invested so much in us, our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors. Remember them. And when we remember the successes, the people who have loved us, cared for us, that lineage where we came from, when we remember that, it gives us courage. It gives us strength. And what it shows us is courage is our nature. It is there. It's not that you and I have to develop courage. We actually don't need to develop any value. All the values are inherently in there. They're in there somewhere. We just need to remember them and bring it out. And that's what Bhagavan Krishna is trying to do to Arjuna, saying this bravery, this wisdom, this courage is in you. And all Bhagavan Krishna is trying to do is he's just trying to poke at it, saying, Parantapa, Partha. And he's saying, Uttishta, get up. No matter what happens, get up. Even if it's so crazy outside, even if it's such a bad thing, even if the situation becomes very, very bad, get up. Because very beautifully, our Gurudev says, the glory is not in falling. There's no glory in falling, but the glory is in rising every time we fall. And that's what Lord Krishna says to Arjuna. Get up, get up. This is not you. Such a beautiful statement that a friend, right now they are friends, can make to another friend. And he tells him straight in the face. He must have been if Lord Krishna were living today, he must have been a New Yorker. He's so straightforward. So both of them are so straightforward, Arjuna and Bhagavan Krishna. Then this Arjuna, he's listening to Krishna. He's listening to Bhagavan, but still in his mind, it's clouded. You know, he's still having these feelings in his mind. He's hearing Krishna, but his mind is still clouded. And all these three things that Lord Krishna said, anaryam, anarya jushtam, aswargyam, akirtikaram, means it's not noble, it won't get you heaven, and it won't get you fame. All these three things, Arjuna tries to object to it, because still he finds himself going on to repeat himself. He's still not fully convinced. And so he tells Bhagavan Krishna in verse 4, how is it? Katham, how drodam bhishmam aham pratiyotsami sankhye. How am I going to fight with Bhishma and Drona? Please think, how am I going to fight Madhusudana, Arisudana? You are the one who is that great destroyer of that demon Madhu. You are the destroyer of enemies, Arisudana. But you please tell me, how am I supposed to fight with them, Ishubhihi, with my arrows? I don't think I can do it. Again, Arjuna, replay. This is what we do. You know, whenever we want to justify something, we are just replaying the same thoughts, but we're putting them in different situations, different contexts. So Arjuna is replaying. He says, Pujar how, means they are worthy to be worshipped. Bhishma is Arjuna's grandfather. I mean, imagine the relationship you have with your grandfather. Imagine how deep-rooted that is. Your grandfather, grandmother, your grandparent, you know, we worship them. We do namaskar to them. And imagine your teacher, Drona. I still don't understand. He says, I still really don't understand. How am I going to fight with them? Now, again, here, so that Bhagavan Krishna said it's not noble. Here, Arjuna is trying to say, well, it's not noble to fight. It's not noble to fight because they're worshipful. How am I just going to get up and fight with them? Again, here, Arjuna has lost this context, because the fight, as we all know by now, is not between Arjuna and Bhishma and Drona. Again, how am I going to fight Bhishma and Drona? It's not about how I am going to fight. The battle is not between Arjuna and Bhishma and Drona. It's between dharma and adharma. So again, he loses context in this verse, and he takes it from the individual perspective. So this is where Arjuna's mind is at. This is what he's really feeling. Now, further on today, Arjuna is going to give a few more of his justifications of why his stance is actually noble, why his stance will bring him to heaven, and why his stance will bring him great fame. So Lord Krishna spoke, but now Arjuna is objecting to Bhagavan Krishna. So that's where we start from today, verse number 5. So I will chant. Now, so beautiful. This is something else you have to see in the Bhagavad Gita. Every now and then, Bhagavan Vedavyasa will change the meter. He'll change the meter. But don't think it's like, it's just done like that. Actually, it's to convey a very beautiful point. So this is like Arjuna wailing, so these meters from 5, 6, 7, 8 is like Arjuna wailing. And so you will see a different kind of sound that's coming out of Bhagavan Vedavyasa's poetry. Okay? All right. Guruna hatva hi mahanubhavan.
Guruna hatva hi mahanubhavan.
Shreyo bhoktum bhaikshamapi haloke.
Shreyo bhoktum bhaikshamapi haloke.
Hatvartha kamanstu guru nihaiva.
Hatvartha kamanstu guru nihaiva.
Punjiya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan.
भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान्
गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्षमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान्. Now Arjuna is getting really emotional. Okay, this is Arjuna getting emotional. He says, Gurun Mahanubhavan Ahatva. He says it is without killing. He says Ahatva. Ahatva means without killing Gurun, my gurus. Particularly here, he's referring to Bhishma, Drona, Mahanubhavan. They are most noble. They are very glorious. He says, without killing them, api iha, in this world, api iha loke, in this world, bhiksham bhoktum shreyaha means to have bhiksha, to gain, to have alms. Gurudev says the bread of beggary. It is shreyaha. It is better to eat bhiksha, to have bhiksha without having killed them. So shreyo bhoktum bhiksham apiha loke means in this world, shreyaha, it is better bhoktum, to eat or to live on bhiksha. It's better to do that. And he says, hatva, if having killed them, if we do that, gurun, hatva gurun, if we kill them, iha eva, if we kill them here itself, artha kaman, that wealth, artha and the desires, punjiya bhogan, I will enjoy the wealth and I will enjoy all these pleasures or things that are desired. I will enjoy them, but rudhira pradigdhan, they will be stained in their blood. So what is Arjuna saying? Better indeed in this world to eat even the bread of beggary than to slay the most noble of teachers. But if I kill them, even in this world, all my enjoyments of wealth and desires will be stained with blood. Oh. So now you see how Arjuna is becoming very emotional. Huh? And it's a very logical, emotional, what you call dangerous kind of emotional. First, he says that my gurus are very noble. Okay, we agree that gurus are noble people. They are. Overall, some things they failed, they fell, but there is a good amount of nobility in them. He says, but I'd rather live my life in bhiksha instead of slaying them, because I believe that's noble. Now here we go. How can this be noble? Okay, because here the thing is, he's a kshatriya. He's a prince. Now, what is noble in our shastra is dharma. Dharma is nobility. As a kshatriya, you have a swadharma because of your swabhava. Your swabhava is that predominantly rajasic temperament. Your swabhava or nature is that rajas, then sattva, then tamas. Therefore, your swadharma, therefore the act that you should engage in as per your temperament should be being a warrior, being a politician, being in the police force. This is what you should engage in. And if you take this prince and you turn this prince into a beggar, what will happen? Do you think he'll really be able to live that life? He will go there and beg alms, and if somebody doesn't give him, he'll pull out his arrows. Are you sure you don't want to give me food? Right? It's a very contradictory thing. He is a kshatriya. He's made this kshatriya. They have to protect people. They have to protect people. They have to provide for people. They have to make sure everybody is secure. A beggar, a bhikshu, is somebody who needs to be protected. A beggar is somebody who begs for alms. And if they don't get any alms, They just don't get. They live with it. There is no complaining. There is nothing. So these two swadharmas are very different. If you as a kshatriya are going to change into a bhikshu or beggar, that is called adharma. That you're changing your whole nature. And that will not let you exhaust your vasanas. You will just be in complete misery. If you think, Arjuna, you're going to go to the Himalayas and sit there quietly, you will just be thinking about war. So this attempt to say, oh, it's better if I become a beggar, a bhikshu, this is actually adharma. This happens many times in people's lives, no? When they have lots of problems going on and on. They say, I want to stay in an ashram. I want to take sannyas. I want to live that kind of life. They say all of these things, but that is pure escapism. Do you think they would really last? They wouldn't, right? I've heard this so many times. I just want to join an ashram. I just want to live there. But the nature is very different. And therefore, in our Shastra, what is right for you and what is right for me are two very different things. We cannot say being a sannyasi is noble. Being a grahastha is noble. It always depends on for who. For who? Because being a sannyasi is not noble for Arjuna. Being a grahastha is not noble for a bhikshu. So in our Shastra, that is why it operates from dharma. It doesn't just say this is good, this is bad. We don't have this system. We have a system of dharma. Because good for who, good at what time, good in what circumstance is very different for everybody. General rule they have, the varnas and ashramas, which we already studied. But that's why Yudhishthira says this dharma is like it's a secret. It's an inner secret. You know, one has to really have the eye for it. Otherwise, if we don't have the eye for it, we will think, yeah, Arjuna's right. Why? Just leave. So that is point number 1. He says that, you know, I'd rather take bhiksha. I'd rather be a beggar. Point number 2, he says, now, if I slay them, I will get bhogan. I will get these pleasures or enjoyments, which are kama and artha, which are desire and wealth. I will get that. There's no doubt about it. I will get that, but I will not get moksha. So here he's arguing that I won't go to heaven. If I slay them, I will get enjoyments that are artha and kama, but I will not go to heaven. So he's saying, I'm not going to go to heaven with this. And more so, he's saying here that the enjoyments I have, rudhira pradigdhan. Rudhira means blood. Pradigdhan, they will be stained with blood. Imagine how a guilty person feels when we commit an act, when we cheat, or when we lie, when we fight. That guilt is very, very difficult to live with. It's one of the most difficult things we live with. And that's why for so long, Dhritarashtra couldn't sleep. Do you remember? He told Vidura, I cannot sleep. And Vidura told him what kinds of people can't sleep. These are the kinds of people who can't sleep at night. Those who have committed some wrongdoing, those who are very lusty, those who have stolen something. Vidura enumerates. Because like this, we cannot sleep. And imagine he will be in the palace and then he will say, oh, Bhishma used to sit there. Drona used to teach me warfare there. They used to do this with me. They used to do that with me. All emotions are coming. So it's very hard. You know, when people have to move homes or when somebody is there in your home and somebody passed away, it becomes very hard. Rudira pradignan, you feel that this is where this person used to sit. This is where this person used to eat. This is how this person made chapati. All these things will come in your mind, isn't it? Right? So he says, I can't do it. It will be stained with blood. So Lord Krishna said, what you're doing is not noble. What you're doing will not get you heaven. Arjuna in this verse says, what I'm doing, what you're telling me to do, Krishna, to slay them, that's not noble. And if you're telling me that I will go to heaven by the war, I'm telling you I won't go to heaven. In this verse, he's trying to counter Bhagavad Krishna. He says, I don't know how I can do this. So this is where his thinking is lying again. And again, you see here something common in Arjuna. He uses this word bhunjiya bhogan. Means here bhunjiya is I will enjoy, right? Again, he's thinking about himself enjoying wealth, himself enjoying pleasures. This war is not for you to even enjoy anything. This war is not even for you to think what will you get out of anything. This war is for dharma. That's it. Done. So whenever we look at something from the individual context, that decision will be wrong. That's just the way it is. So anytime I look at something from the individual context, what time is it going to be most convenient for me? What is it that I am going to gain? What would I really like to do? Whenever we think from the individual perspective, that is a wrong decision. That is adharmic. And so that is why there is adharma in what Arjuna is saying. So again, I said, one has to have that lens of dharma to see. And we've had so many discussions of how do you know what's dharma? How do you know what's adharma? We develop the lens to see it when we study these beautiful scriptures. Okay? So this is now Arjuna's thought flow. Now, continuing. Na chaitad vidmah kataranno gariyah.
न चैतविद्मकतरन्नो गरीयः
Yadva jayema yadiva no jayeyuhu.
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः
Yaneva hatva na jijivishamaha.
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीवशामः
Devasthita pramukhe dhartarashtraha.
देवस्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्रः
Na chaitad vidmah kataranno gariyah. Yadva jayema yadiva no jayeyuhu. Yaneva hatva na jijivishamaha. Devasthitah pramukhe dhartarashtraha. So now he tells Lord Krishna. He says, Nacha etad vidmaha katarano gariyaha. So he says, Naha. Naha means for us. Katarat gariyaha means for us, which is better. Katarat gariyaha, which is better. Nacha etad vidmaha. We don't know. In this case, which is better? Yadva jayema, whether we should win. Yadva jayema, yadiva no jayeyu, or whether they should defeat us, they should conquer us. Whether we should conquer them or they should conquer us. And yaneva hatva najijivishamaha. And yan means them. The Kauravas, Hatva, having killed them, Najijivishamaha, we don't desire to live anymore. Having slain them, we don't desire to live anymore. Who are they? te avasthitaha pramukhe dhartarashtraha. Te avasthitaha. They are stationed here. Avasthitaha. Pramukhe, in front of me. Dhartarashtraha, in the side of Dhritarashtra. So here specifically in the Kaurava party, he is referring to Bhishma and Drona. Because remember, Bhishma, Drona, Pramukataha. Remember, Bhagavan Krishna placed Arjuna right in front of Bhishma and Drona. So now he's trying to conclude his whole string of arguments. Right from there, when Bhagavan Krishna placed him in front of Bhishma and Drona, he's saying now they who you placed in front of me, who are in the party of Dhritarashtra, I don't know which is better. I don't know which is better, whether we should slay them or whether they should slay us. If we slay them, then, we will get such ill fame that how can you? Now he's trying to counter. If Bhagavan Krishna said, whatever you're doing, refraining from war, then, this refraining from war will bring you ill fame. Now Arjuna is trying to counter and saying, if we defeat them, we will get ill fame. Because people will say, how can you fight against your gurus? How can you fight against your teachers? How could you do such a thing? We will get an ill fame. And then if they conquer us, we will probably also get ill fame. We will get ill fame if they conquer us, because they'll say, what, the Pandavas didn't examine things properly. They didn't see the size of the Kaurava army. They didn't evaluate the situation. So if we defeat them, we will get ill fame. If they defeat us, we will get ill fame. So why not just run away? Why not just run away? This is too much. We don't know what to do. And now they're in front of us. I don't know what's going on. And this is where Arjuna's mind is shattered. He's shattered. He has exhausted himself of all possible arguments. He said everything that he could say. And finally, he's done. He's done. And now comes a very beautiful verse in chapter 2. So verse number 7 needs to be marked. Marked means it has to be memorized, reflected upon, understood, practiced, everything. Verse number 7 is the verse of surrender. Okay, so let us read this verse 7. Karpanya doshopahatas svabhavah.
Karpanya doshopahatas svabhavah.
Prichhami tvam dharma samudhachetaha.
Prichhami tvam dharma samudhachetaha.
Yat shreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme.
Yat shreyasya
nishchitam bruhi tanme.
Yat shreyasya
Nishchitam bruhi tanme.
Nishchitam bruhi tanme.
Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam.
Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam.
Karpanyatoshopahatasvabhavah. Prichhami tvam dharma samudhachetaha. Yat shreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. We'll read one more time. Karpanya doshopahatas svabhavah. Prichhami tvam dharma samudhachetaha. Yat shreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. Okay, many things are going on in this verse. The first thing that's going on in this verse is Arjuna makes his own diagnosis. He makes his own diagnosis. What does that mean? He diagnoses himself. He says, Lord Krishna, this is what's happening to me. And this is a very beautiful quality of Arjuna because he accepts that he has a problem. He accepts it. There are three types of students. The first type of student denies that they have a problem. You cannot even call them student. They deny that there is a problem. So is there something wrong? No, nothing's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with me, nothing at all. But something is really wrong. Something is there. No, nothing's wrong. And they try to cover it up. They try to justify it. They try to do all kinds of things. And they themselves are in denial that there is a problem. Whether it's an anger problem, whether it's a health problem, whether it's, some kind of mental problem, whatever it is that's happening to that person, they deny it. They don't want to accept it. Yeah, I don't have any problem. I'm okay. I'm totally okay. And when there is this kind of person who denies that they have a problem, they can never get help. The problem can never be fixed because they're denying it. Denying the fact that it's a problem. Therefore, that problem will never be solved. Good luck. The second type of person accepts that there's a problem. But even with this acceptance, it comes in two levels. Two levels. One will accept there's a problem, but they'll say, I'm too old, now I can't fix it. Huh? Yes, I have an issue, I have a problem, but don't bother me now. I'm too old, I've been living this way and I can't fix it and I don't want to fix it also. Or this person knows that they're doing wrong, but they can't help it. Like Duryodhana. I know what is dharma, I can't do it. I know what is adharma, I can't help but do it. So they accept that there is a problem, but they're not able to fix it. They don't want to fix it. They just don't want to deal with it. Deal with fixing it. These people will never get help. That's it. Their life will be like that. The second one who accepts that there's a problem and says, I'm willing to get help. This is like Arjuna. So both Duryodhana and Arjuna are both accepting. But Duryodhana knows. He knows he's got a problem. But he says he can't help it. This is the way he is. Dhritarashtra also knows he's got an issue. But he can't help it. He's giving in to Duryodhana. Not that he doesn't know. He knows. Arjuna knows he has a problem. But he says, I need help. I have an issue. I'm having issues. I need help. Arjuna asks for help. To ask for help is not a weakness. It's a strength. Because it's acknowledging that right now, I don't know what to do. I need you to help me so I can bounce back, so I can rise up again. To acknowledge our weakness is our strength. To acknowledge that we need help is our strength. And that's Arjuna. It takes a lot to go to Alcoholics Anonymous or something and say, I'm an alcoholic and all of that. It's not very easy. It takes a lot to admit somebody has to, somebody's sick. Someone needs this kind of surgery. Someone is feeling like that. It takes a lot of guts. That's what Arjuna had. So the first kind of person denies. They will never get help. The second kind of person accepts. But then in this accepting, there's two strings. One is like Duryodhana, accepts, but doesn't want to do anything about it. Next string is Arjuna accepts and says, please help. The third one is the best kind of person who prevents any such problem from occurring. They see the problem from far. They say, you know what? This could be a possible problem. I better do something to avoid it. That's the best kind of person. That is like our dear Lakshmana in Sri Rama Gita. He asks Bhagavan Rama, I've been hearing so much about this Maya. Please tell me about this Maya so I don't get entangled in it. Lakshmana says, I've been hearing about this Maya. Now you please tell me what is this? I don't wanna get involved with that. That is the best place to be. But if we cannot go there, at least we can seek help. Now, what does Arjuna say? Now, Arjuna makes his own diagnosis. First, he says, Karpanya dosho bhata swabhavaha. Swabhavaha. My nature, apahata, has been overpowered by Karpanya dosha. Karpanya dosha here means pity. My nature has been overpowered by pity. I pity myself. I pity myself that I'm in such a situation that it's just so difficult for me to get through the situation. And I also feel pitiable about the whole situation. That why we have to fight this war with those people whom we love. My nature as a Kshatriya, it is overwhelmed with this pity. I'm just feeling terribly placed that we have to fight this war against them. That I feel so helpless. I feel so weak. I feel like I'm in misery. I'm in such sorrow. And my swabhava is a Kshatriya. I know I'm a Kshatriya. I know I'm a warrior. Deep inside, I'm a warrior, but I'm just feeling all of this weakness, this pity, this sorrow. I'm in this state. So he himself is saying, this is where I'm at. And I told you, this takes a lot of strength. Many of us can't even do this. Many of us nicely deny, no, I don't have any problem, I don't have any issue. Arjuna, top-notch diagnosis of his very own state. How many of us could do this? He says, I am dharma samudha cheta. I have this delusion about dharma. Cheta. Chetas means mind. Mudha, samudha, delusion. My mind is deluded about dharma. What do you mean my mind is deluded about dharma? Arjuna knows what dharma is. It's not that he doesn't know. Because he was raised as a Kshatriya. And surely he learned the law of dharma. He learned the code. And maybe next week, I have some beautiful quotations from Dharma Shastra, which he would have picked up, which he would have learned. So it's not that I will show you next week. It's not that he didn't know. He knew. He knew what it meant to be a prince. He knew. And he also talked about it. Actually, maybe I'll show you now so that you can see the context. Here. He had this, he knew dharma very well, that he himself, he tells this quotation. He declares this in Mahabharata. Okay. He says, Yasya viryam samashritya dharta rashtra vikathase hantasmi paranthamam bhishmam parathamam bhishmam mishatam sarvadhanvinam. He says, on whose strength, when Sanjaya was bringing the messages back from the Kauravas to the Pandavas, he tells him, please give this message to the Kauravas. Tell the Kauravas on whose strength you are boasting. Yasya viryam samashritya. on that person whose strength you are boasting. Dhartarashtra vikathase. That person of Dhritarashtra, Hantasmi Parathamam. Prathamam. I will first slay. So this word, sorry, is Prathamam. Yeah, it should be Prathamam. I shall first slay this Bhishma. Mishatam Sarvadhanvina. I shall first slay Bhishma within the sight of all the men. Arjuna says this. He says this because he knows Dharma Shastra. It's not that he doesn't know. He's very well aware. And in our Taittiriya Upanishad also, is a very beautiful, beautiful quote. And today we'll finish up with this and then I'll leave you to think about it. And you know that famous saying, Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava, that comes from Taittiriya Upanishad. So it says, Matra Devo Bhava, let thy mother be unto thee as thy goddess. Pitra Devaha Bhava means let thy father be thy god. Acharya Devo Bhava means serve the master as God. And Atithi Devo Bhava, serve that guest as God. This first part we are very, very familiar with. I'm sure everybody knows this. But please know the second part. And this is Upanishad. This is in Shishya Anushasana. This is the instruction for all Shishyas, all students. It says, Yani Karmani Anavadyani means those works that are without blame before the people. Tani Sevitavyani. That is what you should follow. And no Itarani and no others. That's a very important part. Meaning when you regard the father, the mother, the guru as God, you follow their footsteps. Whatever is anavadyani, whatever is without blame, whatever is for the benefit of all, that we must follow fully. But if there is the karma that is not for the benefit of all, not for the good of people, no itarani, that must not be followed. The very Upanishad tells us that. Sometimes the parents, sometimes the guru, sometimes the guests, sometimes the people we revere, sometimes they will do something that is not dharmic, that is not for the benefit of all. And in that case, if that ever arises, that no itarani, that should never be followed. This is Upanishad. So it's not that Arjuna didn't study. It's not that Arjuna didn't know. And it's very much like the case of all of us, not that we don't know. You and I know what we have to do. But we cannot bring ourselves to do it. For some reason, we're deluded. We cannot just bring ourselves to do it. It becomes very hard. So many justifications cloud us. Exact same thing. Our problem is not so much that we don't know. Many times we know, but we cannot do. This is the same problem for Arjuna. Somehow he's feeling deluded. And so this is where he diagnoses his own issue. What does he do after this diagnosis? That we shall see next week. Okay? But this is a very, very important verse. So what did we see today? We saw Bhagavan Krishna try to lift him up, saying, get up. Remember who you are. Remember how great your lineage is. And this, what you're doing is anarya jushtam. It's not noble. Aswargyam, it will not bring you to heaven. Akirti, it will not bring you fame. Get up and fight. And Arjuna's trying to listen, but he says, no, no, no. If I fight, it will be not noble. How can I slay those people who are worthy of worship? How can I do that? And if I fight, he says, it won't bring me to heaven. I'd rather go for bhiksha. I'd rather escape my duty. I'd rather be a beggar Because if I fight and if I win, I will get pleasures. I won't get heaven, I'll get pleasures, but they will be stained with blood. And he says, and if I fight, I will get ill fame. Because if they beat us, then they will say, oh, the Pandavas didn't plan or didn't judge everything properly. And if we beat them, then they will say, how can they slay their gurus? So Bhagavan Krishna, I don't see what you're saying. But let me tell you, Bhagavan Krishna, I fully accept I have problems. I have issues. And from what I'm seeing, this is the diagnosis. Karpanya dosho patasvabhavaha. My nature has been overpowered with pity. And dharma samudha chetaha. I am deluded by my dharma. I know what is dharma, but I'm deluded in the performance of it. I'm just not able to bring myself to perform it. And therefore, what does he do? So here we can truly appreciate the greatness of this student Arjuna, the one who is very strong and accepts, yes, I need help. All right, now what help will come? How does he ask? That also we should see next week. Okay, so we will say the closing prayers, and then I will make a quick announcement. And then if anyone has questions, you can stay back. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.